Hey Woody, sorry about that.
Following,
I couldn't find the invite.
it's all right. Yeah, you're here at the beginning.
Good.
Following the guidance issued by the Commonwealth in March of 2023 regarding the open meeting law, this public meeting will be held remotely, and individuals wishing to participate may do so by utilizing Zoom video conferencing technology. So, I want to do a initial roll call. Mish,
Here.
Marty,
Here. Here.
Dick,
Here.
Gavin,
Here.
Kevin,
Here.
and I think that's Sarah.
Here.
Thanks. And I'm here. All right, great. So we have a quorum. We can start. I had, I think it's really three things to go through. Before I do, I'm going to remind you that next week's meeting is on Thursday, and Michael is going to do his first presentation of the town budget. Um,
Just a heads up, Nina needs to have the link. I'm sending it to her now.
okay, great. So that'll be the only topic for next week. So we'll start at 7 as usual, and I'm guessing it'll take about an hour. Um, Otherwise, uh, just a reminder that the reviews are February 9th, still February 11th, uh, is the date of the joint meeting with the Regional School Committee in Sherburne. I sent an email to Dawn today just asking if she is planning to change that date because the 11th is apparently a negotiation day for them. And then there's a 2/9, 2/11, 2/23, and 2/25. So first business is selection of a vice chair. Uh, the only nomination I've gotten is Gavin. I'm happy to entertain any other nominations.
Please, anybody else who wants to do it.
If not, could I have a motion uh, to put Gavin's name in nomination, and then we'll do an election
I move for Gavin's nomination.
in a second.
Second.
Okay. Mish,
Yes.
Marty,
Yes.
Dick,
Yes.
uh, Sarah,
Abstain.
Kevin,
Yes.
Nina,
Yes.
and Gavin.
Sure.
And I'm a yes. All right, great. So thank you, Gavin. I, I promise not to try not to abuse you. Okay, so I want to go back to the format for the warrant committee report and just continue the discussion we had about what ought to go in it and how it ought to look, and ask whether anybody's had further thoughts about how to structure the document.
Can we pull it up?
The warrant committee report?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking. No, never mind.
Okay.
I thought we were on the template. No.
Yeah, no, I want to start with the warrant committee report. I don't think this should take a long time. So I'm gonna actually, why don't I share this? Um, um, So one of the things that I think would be useful for people to look at as they think about this is the budget document that Medfield presents. I think Medfield has done a pretty great job of uh, informing and uh, communicating with the town residents about the budget and how the budget works. So I'll send a link to this, but this is what they call their annual budget document. It's it's longer than I think the Warrant Committee report needs to be, but it weaves uh, text and both tables and figures. This is kind of the recommended budgets for different departments. Uh, Your prior year, fiscal year 26, the percent change, or the change in dollars, the percent change. Uh, and it talks a little bit about how the budget is built and then uses figures, I think, to uh, convey pretty useful information about how uh, the the budget's been constructed. Um, uh, Looking through this, I have to say I'm more convinced that color figures are useful in terms of the way uh, information is conveyed in this kind of situation. Uh, they use pie charts, they use tables, they use bar graphs. I think all of those are pretty compelling um, in the way they convey information. It's not doesn't get everything across that I think we would like to get across. Seems to me that um, there are a few questions that I think we tr should be trying to answer for the town residents. One is um, where the town's revenue comes from and how those sources are changing over time. One is how the expenses go and how those uh, 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 needs are changing over time, how the town is having to adapt and uh, the way in which, for example, healthcare is going to be a big increase this year. So figuring out a way to convey those things, I think, is useful. And then possibly get into the just the background of the town, residents, how our population is changing, how the school population is changing, those kinds of things, because those do inform our thinking about the budget. So there's another kind of set of figures that I think would be worthwhile for people to look at. This is from Division of Local Services from the state. Um, and these are figures that are just portraying town revenue. This is 2022 to 2026, showing the total budget per capita, revenue by source, meaning the tax levy, state aid, local receipts, and all other. Uh, we don't have enterprise or CPA funds, so those aren't relevant. Um, uh, Revenue per capita as it changed over time, state aid changing over time. Again, I think it would be worthwhile for people to look at these figures, some of the state figures, as another kind of graphical demonstration. They tend to use mostly bar graphs to uh, convey changes over time. But I think, again, the color adds a lot and makes the information a lot easier to absorb. So these are all in this program. You can either look at all 351 towns or select different towns. And this one is I selected Dover, but you can select uh, uh, any of the 351 municipalities, and you can also compare two different municipalities. So it's I'll send this link as well, and you can look at it. But I think it's another kind of source of potentially information as to uh, how to structure the information that we're trying to get across. Other
No,
thought?
I was actually about to say, so the Medfield budget's really, really long. It's like 300 pages.
It is.
Medfield also has a warrant report, which is about 60, but it's only 16 is the first section, which is, I think, comparable. Most of the rest is just supporting documentation. So I actually liked the Medfield warrant report. Um, but even then, I found 16 pages a slog. So,
Yeah, ours, if you counted, was I think 2.5.
two, because the third page was just the names of the people who were on
Yeah.
the warrant committee. So I think there's probably something in between the two. I sent you last minute, Woody, just a quick word outline. I don't know if you had a chat. It was like 15 minutes ago, or sorry, 6:45 or whatever.
Yeah, I
Um,
haven't seen it.
because I started downloading the data out of the Excel from the Department of what was that, Local Services or whatever.
Yeah.
And I've discovered I'm very slow at making charts versus what I used to be. So actually trying to fill in some placeholders to do it. Um, I don't know. Is it possible for me to share my screen just so I can kind of show you how I was thinking about it? Just
Yeah, let me just make it possible. Hang on just a second.
okay.
Okay, uh
Let
you should be able
me.
to now.
Okay, how do I do it? Share screen more. Uh, share. What do I want to do? Okay. So can people see what I was kind of thinking? So I was kind of taking the body of what people previously had, which kind of there was an introductory section where we had a bunch of text for it. I think explaining what the role of the warrant committee is, summary of budget process makes sense. But then my thought was, okay, what are the charts that I'd like? Because there's so much information. And then can we have some sort of qualitative commentary so people could understood? Because that was the one knock I'd give on the Medfield one is I didn't know whether it was good or bad. There was a lot of training things. So I then tried to think about what are the big buckets that I'd want from a financial overview, since that is the role of the warrant committee is to discuss the financial situation and give a recommendation. And so I had four buckets. I don't know if these are the four buckets people would pick, but it really kind of was in some way talking about affordability, the balance sheet health of the town, the operating budget sustainability, and the town infrastructure status. And then we'd have the recommendation on particular articles. But these were the nine kind of either charts or tables I was thinking that one could insert with qualitative commentary around it in order to go for those buckets, in order to give some context to somebody who's reading it, what the takeaway should be, or what the environment they should be thinking about when making their decisions at town meeting. So I know this is spot initial stuff. So I'm one of those people who oftentimes I need to mull over. So happy to put it in the shared drive and people can take a look at. But this was something that I was trying to think about how I would bucket things so people could kind of think through and be able to get an impression. Because I mean, I look at some of the numbers and the stats pulling down from the Mass website. My general reaction is we do seem to have a pretty good balance sheet health relative to other towns. Our tax rate is actually reasonably modest relative to the surrounding towns, especially considering that we don't have a commercial base or an industrial base. So the millage is actually pretty reasonable. Our average tax rate is high because of the house values are high. I think where the concern was, and even in the prior one, is effectively we didn't really spend much on capital budget for the last so many years, and now we got to do catch up. And the operating budget, because there's so much inflation in healthcare and some other things, it's not as comfortable as what it used to be, or what it was, in which case maybe we're going to have to make harder choices. And so having that kind of context. So yeah, I'll stop rambling, but that was kind of first impression of ideas. And yes, no pride of ownership. So if people want to rip it to shreds, rip it to shreds. But I thought easier to put something in front versus just theoretically talking about it.
Comments?
Yeah, I'd like I was looking at our warrant from last year and the book, and I really liked, well, first of all, I liked the way it started off, and with Jim Rapetti's, um, what he wrote up and kind of about the motions and the understandings, and I also thought the municipal terminology, being right out there in the front, was a great idea. And for instance, I didn't see that in the Medfield one. And on the warrant committee, on the report, I thought the way it's laid out, the financial overview I thought was great. And I like these buckets that, um, what you've got, you've got an operating budget, the capital budget, the special articles, and then a recommendation. My only comment, so I like those, to me, in the way my mind works, and is, I liked the way that was broken out. Where I think we can really help out, though, is the verbal descriptions, and that gets interlaced with the charts and graphs. But I like the buckets that exist right now, or existed in the last warrant.
Other comments?
What I did like what you were sharing with us, Woody, from Medfield. I liked that one. That was kind of what I was talking about last week, where it shows the delta between the two fiscal years. I thought that's kind of nice.
Yep.
So that's always good. And then interesting, that other chart you had up from Medfield. I think you were talking about something else, but it almost looked like they had KPIs, right? Like the KPI is that, the reserve fund should be funded at, but at X level target, and did we hit it or did we not?
Yep.
That was kind of cool. But yeah, I mean, Gavin, the only thing I would say about this is, let's like, whose opinion is it that's good, fair, poor? That's, I don't know if would we have to vote on that, and everybody would, like, the warrant committee would come up with what the rating is on a given bucket, or that'd be the only thing that I would wonder if that opens up some um, you know, people saying, "Wow, Dover's not affordable." What do you mean it's good? I don't know.
Yeah, I was thinking about that also, Kevin, and I kind of was looking at it saying, if it's not a green light, then my mind goes, well, then the town's not being financially managed correctly. Anything short of that, to me, is, well, this is a problem.
Yeah,
I would actually flag that that's a good thing then for the town to realize, or at least have it pointed out. I mean, it should. I mean, I'd love it all to be green. I don't think it is all green. I think that's why this is a tougher discussion than perhaps in prior years, and the next several years could potentially be tough too, especially if we continue to have healthcare cost inflation and so on. And by the way, these were placeholders, so please don't take it as I'm actually saying that, yes, we have a very good balance sheet health. It was illustrative more than anything else. But I do think if the warrant committee as a whole should opine on it. And yes, we might have a spectrum of opinions on exactly where we are. Is it good or very good, or is it good or fair? But man, I think it, it's something that the average citizen might appreciate somebody putting at least a stake in the ground and saying, yeah, we actually do have a problem, or if no, things are actually looking pretty good on this dimension.
So I just want to make my own qualifier here that I don't think I think it's perfectly reasonable to discuss whether or not we want to have red light, green light, uh, yellow light indicators. But I'd say the town's budget is stressed this year. That's not a reflection, I don't believe, of poor management, which is what I think you kind of said, Dick.
Yeah.
The reality is almost every town in Massachusetts is stressed right now. And most of that is a consequence of inflation exceeding the 2.5 limit on property taxes and the failure of state aid to keep up with inflation. In fact, to fall substantially behind inflation. So uh, towns are being squeezed all over the state. Um, the Mass Municipal Association has issued a document trying to make the argument that there's a crisis in municipal finance right now, which I think is pretty compelling. I'll send around a link to it again. But I think uh, it is probably important for us to convey the stresses that are kind of weighing on town finances right now. It's not just that capital expenses are high in the last several years. It's that uh, revenue is not kept up with need, and uh, that's a that's not unique to Dover in any way. I mean, as Robin said last week, Sherburne's looking at a Prop 2.5 override in the next year. And there are overrides being contemplated all across the state right now because of this.
That might be mismanagement over in Sherburne, but no,
But I don't think so. If you look at them, again,
I'm just teasing.
yeah, but in a fundamental way, remember that they are two-thirds the size of Dover with a school budget that is equivalent to Dover's.
Yeah.
And their school budget is 60% of their expenses. We're around 53%. That's a big difference. And their tax base is substantially below ours. They were, I think, third in the state last year in their average tax bill.
Yeah, they're high.
Yeah. And some of the towns ahead of them, Brookline was number one. Brookline's number one in part because of John Henry and a lot of other people who have an enormous amount of money paying substantial uh, property taxes. So the way the state reports it is an average tax bill, which is a lot less useful than the median tax bill. But uh, it's not that Sherburne is not is profligate in the way they spend money, except for the fact that they're spending a lot of money on education. Anyway, so the fundamental question, I guess, that I have is what information do town residents need to make an informed vote on the budget? That's a lot of what we're trying to kind of give them in the Warrant Committee report in the Blue Book. Something that provides more depth than simply our recommendation whether to vote yes or no. Any other comments?
Yeah, I agree that I think that the breakdown from the previous report is straightforward. It's just the most straightforward way of creating buckets for the information, but adding the some of the graphics that we had talked about before as illustrations. So in terms of organizing, I understand. I think that the the traditional organization works makes sense, but having it be less copy driven and more graph driven makes sense to me. I mean that seems like a straightforward way of presenting of delivering what we need to deliver to help people understand.
Yep.
I, to me, it's like, okay, we've got, the operating budget, it will essentially, what's discretionary and what's not discretionary. And I think, there's going to be certain costs which the town is faced with, period. And so that's that in a way. And then, okay, well, where can there be some movement and that becomes the discretionary.
Yeah, there's a lot less that's discretionary than we would like to imagine, I think. You know, I think in the Medfield report, they identify something like a quarter of their expenses as non-discretionary, meaning healthcare costs, insurance, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And the reality is we have uh, the schools are going to have a union contract. It's we have limited flexibility around the contract once the contract is signed. Um, Dawn uh, is uh, somewhat magical at times in the way she's able to manipulate her FTEs, and they're constantly thinking about retirements leading to replacing older teachers with younger teachers who cost less, all those kinds of things. But in reality, 86 or 88% of the school budget is personnel, and that's not something they have that much control over.
What would be most helpful, Woody, actually talking about specific indicators? Okay. So the nine I had, in case people were wondering, or the script, I don't know how big it was on the screen. One was tax rates relative to the surrounding towns and how they've been tracking.
Yep.
Second was average homeowner tax bill. Um, those were two charts that are pretty easy to get the data for
Yep.
off of the website and off of town data. For balance sheet health, there was short-term reserves, so free cash balance over time. So what's the short-term buffer? Long-term reserves, so stabilization fund balances over time. So do we have a more long-term buffer? And then something on debt levels or debt rating, and how that's also tracked over time. So people can understand sort of the balance sheet of the town, what we have and what we have from an obligation standpoint. For operating budget sustainability, I think everybody's made comments about revenue growth over time I'll call it by bucket. So, hey, most of it is tax levy associated with residential property. But hey, look, it grows at 2.5% plus new development. Expense growth over time by bucket so people can see exactly how much is going to the schools, how much is going to the police and the different categories, but also how it's changing over time. Some measure of excess tax levy, since that's the buffer before we have to do a Prop 2.5 override. Do we have anything left over? Or are we right at the levy limit? In which case, guys, you really have to constrain expense growth to revenue growth. And then from an infrastructure and capital budgeting, I like having some measure of capital budget spending over time. And if there is some bucketing, just so people can get a sense of what the level is, what it's historically been, and what it's likely to be over the next several years. Those were kind of the nine metrics that jumped out at me um, um, as ways to get as comprehensive a picture while also trying to limit the perfusion. Because I do worry we put too many charts and visuals and graphs. People will lose people too. So whether we, I I was the proponent of a green light, red light, or some sort of qualitative ranking system. We could also completely eliminate, just have textual with charts and let people make their own conclusions on it too. Um,
But I do
that
think
might be
there's a
less
value
contentious,
to,
but
I,
yeah.
I think there's a value this year to um, letting people know that uh, municipal finance across the state is being challenged,
Yep.
and that's that Dover, despite its affluence, is not immune to this. And uh, the reality is that Dover's property values have been soaring in the last few years. The our levy ceiling, which is the uh, kind of tax base, is has been going up staggeringly. It's gone from like 50 million to or I can't remember what it is, but it's doubled
Yeah.
in the last 5 years or something. It's but that has very little impact on the town's finance,
Yep.
unless we're willing to vote a Prop 2.5 override.
Which I think is great commentary within sort of an introductory section to highlight. I think it is fundamentally important to do the condition
Yeah,
um, um, and provide that context.
yeah. Other comments, questions, suggestions?
I think maybe some narrative in that section there on healthcare costs and how that's
Yeah,
affecting would be very useful. And maybe that might require a chart to show over the years how much the increase is and how it's
yep,
not incremental.
yep. Yeah, we were lucky last year. Uh, Medfield's health insurance went up 14% last year. It's going to go up more this year. We still don't know where we're going to be. Somewhere, I'm not sure what Michael's budgeting, but somewhere between 14 and 18% seems
It's a lot.
likely. So, yeah, I do think that's a reasonable thing to include.
Yeah, it might be useful as we think about the some of the Gavin's list, because some of those were ones we had talked about before. Thinking about what will be like perennially useful, so that as we think about hopefully people reading this year after year, they get used to looking at certain charts and
Yep.
sort of get a sort of literacy with the chart. So as we pick them this year, thinking that some of these we will always want to, we'll want to include for the future.
Yeah.
Yep.
Those nine I was thinking is perennial, but I actually like the idea of having a healthcare chart for this year because I think it is so powerful to explain that, hey, a non-trivial percentage of the budget's going up by a very, very large number in absolute terms and also relative to history.
And again, not something we have very much control over.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other thing that I wanted to talk about a little bit was how much uh, the liaisons can play a role in prepping the presentations for of the department heads to the warrant committee. We've obviously we're asking all of them to come up with KPI this year for the first time. My sense from what I've seen is that the understanding of KPI uh, uh, is not all the way there for many of the departments, and maybe helpful for us to play some role in helping the different departments identify KPI that they both can measure and then track that reflect on their uh, uh, core mission. And I'm just curious what people think about their comfort level, what their comfort level is in getting involved in that way. We haven't in the past, at least not in the recent past, uh, done much to prep the presentations. And I would say that it's been apparent in the way and how different the presentations are and how frequently that the amount of information that's transmitted is not that great. So it'd be nice to get us more towards a standard presentation and to get people uh, uh, more comfortable with kind of measuring what they're doing and measuring their success rate, as well as kind of conveying the information about what their needs are and what their challenges are.
I can at least, so I was chatting with Mark because I was visiting the community center, and I think the general impression is that there's certainly people are aware of the desire for some standardization. I think there's some angst over what exactly that means because a lot of it's being TBD. We'll give you more information as we get closer. So I think there is some antsiness on it, but there's certainly some openness and understanding. I will agree with you that in particular with regard to KPIs, some of them, I think it's more easy for them to wrap their heads around it because it's really self-evident what a good KPI might be for them. I think other ones they're a little puzzled. They're not 100% sure. In which case, I certainly mentioned to Mark of, hey, as you think it through, please use us as a sounding board or reach out to us and let us know if you'd like to have a discussion beforehand. And he seemed pretty open to it, albeit I think a lot of it also is still waiting for guidance on the standardized sort of presentation context before that's a kind of a logical discussion that happens. So, but I will say it appears that there's openness on it, so that was good. And I think that especially for the ones where it's less evidence, like Concom, that those that there'll probably need to be more back and forth, or we might get a KPI that we don't really understand or think is a worthwhile KPI. In which case, then the question just be is do you push back in the general session, or do you try to actually lay the groundwork beforehand to minimize that chance?
Well, I guess one question is how comfortable people are discussing this with their uh, the departments that they are communicating with.
I think I know from meeting with police that Chief Vinci was very receptive to feedback on his sort of initial thought. His initial KPIs, as you know, were largely like sort of statistics as opposed to sort of indicators.
Metrics
with
and
that,
KPIs.
yeah, exactly, analysis, right? So, and he wanted to understand it better and to meet what we were looking for. So it was just a matter of, starting a conversation, and then we have more to go on that. But he was enthusiastic about trying.
Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about, with Mark, they have the attendance records, and same with the library. And I was thinking about and Gavin with the Conservation Commission, what would be what would be a key performance indicator for a Conservation Commission? I was trying to think through what would they come up with?
One clue
I went to
is to look at
Medfields in order to try to figure that out. So that was my default assumption is just go look at Medfield.
another hint is to look at their grants, to look at where what their grants are asking them for, because of like because this data that they're gathering here will also be useful for grant applications.
Yeah.
And as they start to think about it that way,
because you can try to do number of cases. I'm just not sure. We can tell whether they're busy or not busy, but are they actually doing a good job or not? In which case, if you read the Medfield, it's less quantitative, but it was more qualitative. They thought pretty heavily about community engagement, and that was one activity that they had as a big bucket. Um, and so I've been actually going to some of the other towns around to try to figure out on their websites how they think about it. It still is a little difficult because we don't take measurements of our water or our land. And I mean, technically, the mandate is protection of the water and the land. And so I've certainly been trying to figure out if there's some good ones. But you're right. It gets to, I think some of them are very challenging, some are easier. But I will say, but I agree with you, Mish, that my general impression to date was that people seem more open, pretty open in order to actually have the discussion on it. So
Yeah, that's my sense, is that most of the people I've spoken with have been m more than willing to kind of engage about it.
yeah.
The planning board, the new town planner, Melissa Santucci Rossi, is very receptive. So that's really helpful.
Yep. I, my sense is that if we're willing to kind of approach people, we're going to generally get a positive response. All right, so I guess what I'd say, what ask is that it's not a bad time to be communicating with the department leaders now anyway about kind of whether there are any things that have come up as they've gone through the budget process. So to ask specifically about what they've identified as KPIs and engage around it feels like that I don't think our standards need to be particularly high this year. If we can get everybody to even have a KPI, I would consider that an accomplishment.
Yeah.
But 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 I also think that the more we engage people about it, the more supported they're going to feel in the process, and the more likely it is we'll get some useful kind of information and activity out of it. All right, so the last thing, which I'm not going to spend a lot of time on since I'm waiting, still want to talk to Chris before we go too far, but uh, we've been talking in the working group about the structures for the presentations. Uh, and So far, before he went out on leave and before he was sick and then went out on leave, Chris distributed the original that we had PowerPoint slides that we had suggested. I think we've agreed that having simplifying it even further makes sense. So collapsing down to three fundamental slides. Gavin, do you want to explain kind of what the thought was?
Yeah, no, I mean, I know it would have been great if Chris, we got alignment with Chris before and they got sent out prior to the holidays, so people would
Yeah.
have time. But with it only being a couple weeks prior, the question becomes of how ambitious do we want to be and how much do we want to do foundation. So, I mean, I was kind of thinking there were three pass through. One is just we say, hey, these are the priorities we would like you to talk about uh, certain specific categories of things in your presentation and give them verbal guidance. I think another option is to do the template slides that, or something akin to the template slides that I had created before, which for people's reference, there were five of them. And I mean, one was an overview slide, one was a KPI slide, one was a slide talking about last year's budget and how it's performed, or a fourth slide on a discussion of 2027, and then a fifth slide on the actual budget request on 2027. I think my fear is I don't know if that's too ambitious, and especially in context of time frame. So I went and looked at the slides again and said, what can we skinny out? And so like, well, if I really wanted to skinny it out, I'd get rid of the historical discussion and I'd get rid of the 27 discussion and just focus on the overview, the KPI slide, and the budget request, laying the foundation that, hey, this is at least the base. And if anybody in the department head wants to do more, great, fantastic, but please at least fill in these 3 slides. So I did put in the shared drive. I created a folder for sort of reporting template, and then put in both the initial, which was the 5-slide version, as well as the 3-slide version. And my thought was that if we have those 3 routes, just give them verbal guidance, give them 5 slides, or give them 3 slides. It might make sense just to give them the 3 slides. They have something to work off of, because I've always feel that people get angsty and nervous if it's just ambiguous. And use that as the foundation. And obviously with the guidance that whatever the department head wants to do in addition as they present, great, but please at least have these 3 slides filled out. So that way we at least also get alignment amongst all the other departments, because verbal, I worry about people interpret it very, very differently, and we still have a very big mishmash of product. And so this would then enable everybody to go and at least have something that we can compare across departments and use as the foundation for future years to build off of.
Yeah, I'd be comfortable with that. With the 3 slides, asking for 3 basic slides, an overview KPI, and then their budget.
Yeah. So by the way, if people want to look at what's in the shared drive and just give me any feedback, if they have suggestions, tweaks, I tried to put in a little bit of language in order to help people understand, and boxes, and it's not meant to force people to utilize the exact structure, but it might be easy for those who don't want to have to think too hard and just want to comply.
Great. Any discussion?
Yes, could somebody send me a link to the shared drive?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And again, what, like, Gavin, I think the 3 slides are great, but like, when do the people have them yet? I mean, I guess that's where I feel we are getting a little, we came up with this idea, but like, we got to get it to them.
Yeah, it looks as though that Chris did not distribute them before he went out. So I think if we agree on the 3 slides, I'll talk to Michael this week and ask him to distribute them. And then
Yeah.
again, when you speak to people about KPIs, it'd be useful just to kind of check in about the structure of their presentation.
I mean, can we just email it to them directly, Woody?
I'd like to ask Michael first.
Okay.
Feels like it would be more politically correct to have their approval before we do it.
Okay.
But I doubt that it's going to be a problem. So I think it should go out by the beginning of next week.
Yeah. I mean, if it goes out, then it's a very natural, easy reach out afterwards saying, hey, I know Michael sent out the slides.
Yep.
Can we have a quick call in order to discuss? And that's a great foundation to talk about both the presentation, the budget, as well as the KPIs.
All right, great. Misha reminded me we haven't voted on the minutes, and I was thinking that one of the KPIs for the Concom is actually getting their minutes done. So can I have any discussion, questions, corrections about the minutes? If not, can I get a motion to accept the minutes?
Motions.
And a second.
Second.
Marty,
Yes.
Mish,
Yes.
Evan,
Yes.
Gavin,
Yes.
Dick,
Yes.
Nina,
Yes.
Sarah,
Aye.
and I'm an I. Great. So that's all I had, unless anyone's got other new business that they want to bring up. If not, next Thursday I'll send out a reminder and send out the webinar invites. But next Thursday evening, Michael's going to do the budget presentation, so hopefully everybody can attend. Thank you for being flexible about that.
Do you have a sense of, is it a particularly concerning, or for the back and forth that he's had, it's actually in a place where you're pretty comfortable with it?
Robin, do you want to comment?
I, I'm
There's
not, I'm not sure what you're asking, Gavin. So the preliminary budget has been put together. There are, the budget excluding the capital requests is really manageable. What we need to really think about is looking at the capital requests. There are priorities that the departments have put in. My priority scaling is a little different. Priority one is infrastructure that needs to get replaced. And then some of the other things like, pickleball courts are nice to have for the town. So I think we should think about different kinds of um, priority structures. So what we're going to present is the budget, and then there is approximately 3.5 million of capital that we need to think about. Will that capital happen? If it does happen, is it going to be in the form of debt, or are we going to pay cash for it? Is it a combination of it? And what does that do to the overall budget? So those are the types of decisions that we're going to have to make. The total capital requests for fiscal year 2027 are $5.9 million. So, and we're looking at 3.5 the following year. So we really need to tackle this capital problem and make sure we never get into this position again. We really need to be funding for replacement of things. There's some major infrastructure requests. There's the fuel island, which is 1.8 million, and then there's some additional culverts, which are close to 500,000. And then there's a whole bunch of other things on there. But it's a really big number. And the schools need their air handlers replaced. So, we'll go over all of that, but I think that's going to be the biggest challenge for us to tackle is, how are we going to pay for it? And it definitely needs to be a combination of cash and debt. And then if we were fiscally responsible, fiscally prudent, we would probably try and stretch this out over more years than we are. So, we need to have some tough discussions. And I think all of the departments know that these discussions will happen this year. And right now we have a 15% increase in healthcare costs. Um, I am told that it looks like the increase will be somewhere around 12% from a preliminary meeting that they had, but it's not certain yet. And we also need to look at that healthcare number and see whether or not census has changed, that maybe we need to really increase it by a blended type of rate and not just the full 12%. So there are a lot of things, the first pass is not as horrible as I thought it was going to be, but it's going to be a challenge.
But there's still going to be tough decisions on the capital budgeting side of things.
Right, and we also don't have certain things in our budget that we need to add. So for instance, the schools put in a placeholder for, you know what, there's there's an amount in the school budget that already reflects where they think negotiations are gonna end up.
Yeah.
We don't have those same kind of placeholders in our salary line items for some of the negotiations that are going on right now. So we need to add that in. So we have you know, based upon a preliminary look, Chris has worked on it while he's been on paternity leave. So the budget is in really good shape. He will be back on Tuesday, full time. So
Okay. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Took a while there. And a second.
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 Right. Marty,
Yes.
Mish,
Yes.
Dick,
Yes.
Gavin,
Yeah.
Yes.
Kevin. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Nina
Yes.
and Sarah.
Aye.
Great. Okay, so I'll send out the invites, but next Thursday at 7.
Great.
All right. Thank you.